My husband married me to steal an inheritance he thought I didn't know I had. Then he cheated. Not only that, he laughed while they dragged me out of our house with one suitcase. Today, I watch the same man in handcuffs crying, begging for mercy. If someone you once loved ruined your life, stole your future, and left you homeless, would you destroy them if you finally had the power? My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how I went from sleeping on a friend's couch to owning the building. Actually, no, that's a lie. This story begins 28 years ago, in a hospital room where my mother made a choice that would haunt both of us forever. Honestly, I don't know why I married someone like you. Daniel's words hung in the air like smoke at the charity gala. Around us, crystal glasses clinked, $100 perfume mixed with the stench of my humiliation. His new lover, Sabrina, stood beside him, her hand possessively on his arm, her smile sharp as broken glass. "Poverty is contagious," he continued, loud enough for the nearby donors to hear. "I can't breathe around you. Here's what they don't tell you about public humiliation. Your body forgets how to work." My hands went numb, my throat closed. I stood there in my department store dress, the nicest thing I owned, while women in Chanel suits whispered behind jeweled hands. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was seeing Lydia across the room. My best friend. The woman who'd held me while I cried about Daniel's coldness, the woman who'd assured me I was imagining things. She was laughing. With them. 3 years earlier, I'd been different. Hopeful. Stupid, maybe. I ran a small tailoring business in my village. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. When Daniel walked into my shop that day, in his expensive suit with his expensive smile, I thought I'd won the lottery. "You're talented," he'd said, watching me work. "You're wasted here." 6 months later, we were married. I sold my business, gave him my savings to invest in our future, moved to the city where everything cost too much and everyone looked through me like I was invisible. The cruelty started small, comments about my accent, corrections about which fork to use. "Don't embarrass me at dinner, Sarah." Then it grew teeth. "Your family is worthless. You wouldn't understand business. Why don't you just stay home?" And then came Sabrina, golden-haired, Harvard-educated, perfectly polished Sabrina, who'd been sleeping with my husband since year 2 of our marriage. But I didn't know that yet. Not until Lydia, sweet, loyal Lydia, accidentally posted a photo on Instagram. Daniel and Sabrina at a beach resort. The same weekend he'd told me he was at a business conference. When I confronted him, he laughed. "What are you going to do about it?" he asked. "Leave? With what money? Go where? Back to your village?" He was right. I had nothing, no savings, no business, no family nearby. I'd given him everything, and he'd turned it into chains. If you've ever felt trapped, powerless, or underestimated, hit that like button. Because what happens next? Nobody saw coming. And if you want to see how this story ends, subscribe and turn on notifications. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday, not handed to me with sympathy or even cold professionalism. No, Daniel brought police officers. He claimed I'd violated our prenuptial agreement by stealing from him, me, the woman who'd given him every cent I had. "What prenuptial agreement?" I'd asked, shaking. "We never signed." He pulled out papers, my signature, documents I'd never seen before. Later, I'd learn he'd hidden them in the stack of wedding planning papers, buried between catering invoices and flower arrangements. I'd signed my own prison sentence without knowing it. The police escorted me out of the house I'd cleaned, decorated, turned into a home. I was allowed one suitcase. That's it. 3 years of my life fit into one suitcase. Here's where the story should go. I found strength. I picked myself up. I persevered. But that's not what happened. What happened is I broke. I found a one-room apartment with peeling paint and a ceiling that leaked brown water when it rained. I got a job at a tailoring shop, making alterations for $12 an hour. I ate rice for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because it was all I could afford. At night, I'd scroll through social media, watching Daniel and Sabrina live my stolen life. Designer dinners, yacht parties, engagement photos. Wait, engagement? 6 months. He'd waited 6 months after our divorce to propose to her, and Lydia was in every photo, maid of honor, smiling, celebrating. I want to tell you I plotted revenge, that I was secretly strong, building my empire in the shadows. But the truth? I wanted to disappear. Some nights, I stood on my apartment balcony, 3 stories up, and thought about how easy it would be to just stop. If you're in that dark place right now, please don't. Please stay, because here's what I didn't know. Sometimes the universe is just setting up the shot. You have your mother's eyes. I looked up from the wedding dress I was hemming. An older man stood in the doorway of the shop, gray-haired, expensive suit, eyes that seemed to see straight through me. "Excuse me?" "Emma Chen," he said. "That was her name, your mother." My hands froze. Nobody here knew my mother's name. She'd died when I was 7. A car accident, I'd been told. After that, I was raised by my aunt in the village. "Who are you?" "My name is Harrison. I was your father's attorney." Here's where you think you know this story. Poor girl discovers she's secretly rich. Tale as old as time, right? Wrong. "Your father was Marcus Chen," Harrison continued. "Commercial real estate developer, worth approximately $2.3 billion when he died." I laughed. Actually laughed. "You have the wrong person. My father was a construction worker who abandoned us." "Your father was murdered," Harrison said quietly, "and your mother ran with you to save your life." The story he told sounded like fiction. My father had built an empire, but his business partner, his own brother, wanted it all. When my father refused to sell, there was an accident at a construction site. My mother knew it wasn't an accident. She took me and disappeared, living in poverty to keep us invisible. "She was going to tell you everything on your 18th birthday," Harrison said. "But she died 2 months before." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because your uncle, the man who killed your father, just died. Heart attack. The will is being contested, and you're the legal heir. But there's a problem." Of course there was. "Your uncle had 2 sons. They're claiming you're not really Marcus Chen's daughter. They're challenging the DNA evidence, tying everything up in court, and they're, well, connected. One of them sits on the board of Richardson Holdings," I finished, my voice hollow. "Daniel's company." Harrison nodded. "Your cousins have been Daniel Richardson's silent investors for 3 years. They've been using your husband's company to launder money from your father's estate." Everything clicked into place. Daniel's sudden interest in a village tailor, the rushed wedding, the prenuptial agreement I'd never really signed. Except I hadn't I? Just not the version I thought I was signing. "He married me to compromise the inheritance claim," I whispered. "We believe so. If Marcus Chen's heir was married to their business partner, they could claim conflict of interest, tie everything up in probate for decades. But then you became inconvenient. The divorce was meant to discredit you, make you look like a gold digger who married above her station." "So what do I do?" I asked Harrison. "Honestly, you have 2 choices. Walk away, I can get you a settlement, maybe 10 million, and you disappear. Or we fight. But Sarah, these people are dangerous. They've killed before. If you do this, you can't do it as yourself. You'd need to become someone else entirely." Here's where the story should go. I train montage my way to success. 6 months later, I'm a badass CEO who destroys her enemies. But that's not what happened either. What happened is I said yes, and then I spent 18 months in hell. Not the glamorous kind of hell. The boring kind. The kind where you study corporate law until your eyes bleed. Where you learn accounting, investment strategy, real estate development, where you hire tutors to fix your accent, your posture, your handwriting. Harrison moved me to Singapore. New name, Sophia Chen, Marcus's niece from the international branch of the family. No one could connect me to Sarah Richardson, the pathetic ex-wife. I cut my hair, changed my style, learned to walk in heels without wobbling, practiced smiling without warmth, the way powerful people do. But here's what the montages don't show. I was lonely, desperately lonely. Every day I wanted to quit, to call Lydia, even though she'd betrayed me, to text Daniel, even though he'd destroyed me, because at least being humiliated meant being seen. At the 6-month mark, I broke down, called Harrison at 3 a.m. sobbing. I can't do this. I'm not strong enough. I'm just a village girl who's good with a needle and thread. You know what he said? Good. Use that. What? You think your father was born rich? He was a laborer's son. He built his empire with his hands. That's your advantage, Sarah. These people, your cousins, Daniel, Sabrina, they've never struggled. They don't know how to fight when the rules change. But you do. Something shifted in me that night. I stopped trying to become them. Instead, I became something they couldn't understand. Myself, but weaponized. I walked into the Richardson Holdings shareholder meeting as Sophia Chen, major investor from the Singapore branch. Daniel didn't recognize me. Let me say that again. My ex-husband, who'd been married to me for 3 years, looked right at me and saw a stranger. Ms. Chen, he said, shaking my hand. Welcome. I hope you'll find our operation impressive. I'm sure I will, I replied in my practiced accent. I've heard fascinating things about your company culture. Sabrina was there too, heavily pregnant, hanging on Daniel's arm like a designer accessory. She looked me up and down, assessing threat level, and dismissed me. The meeting was boring corporate nonsense until we got to item 7, emergency funding. As you know, Daniel began, we've had some unexpected cash flow issues. Because your silent investors pulled out, I interrupted. The room went silent. I'm sorry, who are you exactly? One of the board members asked. Sophia Chen. As of yesterday, I represent the Chen family estate, which means I now control the voting shares previously held by the Richardson family's silent partners. Daniel's face went white. You can't. Oh, but I can. You see, there's been a fascinating development in probate court. Marcus Chen's daughter has been found, alive, and she's contesting the entire distribution of the estate, which means every transaction made with Chen family money in the past 3 years is now under investigation. Including your marriage to one Sarah Richardson, a marriage that happened 6 months before you filed your inheritance claim, a marriage to Marcus Chen's daughter. Interesting coincidence, don't you think? Daniel lunged toward me. Security held him back. You're her, he whispered. You're Sarah. I smiled, the cold smile I'd practiced for 18 months. No. Sarah was weak, broken, easily manipulated. I'm what she became when you threw her away. But here's where the story does something you won't expect. I didn't destroy him. I know. You want the revenge, the crushing defeat, and trust me, I wanted it too. But as I stood there, watching this man who'd tormented me literally being held back by security, I felt nothing, not satisfaction, not anger, just empty. Wait, you're thinking, that's it? That's the ending? No. Because that night back at my hotel, Harrison came to see me. It's done, he said. Daniel's company will be liquidated. Your cousins are facing fraud charges. Sabrina's prenup means she gets nothing. And Lydia, well, turns out she's been embezzling from Daniel's accounts for 2 years. She'll be arrested tomorrow. Good, I said automatically. Is it? I looked at him. What do you mean? Sarah. And you are Sarah, no matter what name you use. What do you actually want? Long pause. I'd spent 18 months focused on revenge. on becoming powerful enough to destroy the people who'd destroyed me. But sitting there in that expensive hotel room, wearing expensive clothes, with access to billions of dollars, I was still sleeping alone, still eating dinner by myself, still waking up at 3 a.m. feeling hollow. "I don't know," I whispered. Harrison sat down. "Your father built his empire to create something lasting. Your mother gave up everything to protect you. They didn't do that so you could become like the people who hurt you. Then what am I supposed to do?" That's not for me to answer. But maybe start by asking, if you weren't angry, what would you want? 3 months later. The house Daniel threw me out of? I bought it. But I didn't turn it into some shrine to my pain. I turned it into a shelter for women escaping financial abuse, free legal services, job training, childcare. The first woman who walked through the door looked at me with the same hopeless eyes I'd had 2 years ago. "Is this real?" she asked. "It's real," I said. "And you're safe now." Daniel went to prison. Not because I destroyed him, though I could have, but because his own crimes caught up with him. Fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. He built his empire on lies, and it collapsed under the weight of truth. Sabrina? The baby wasn't Daniel's. It was his business partner's, the same business partner who'd helped Daniel hide assets during our divorce. When she realized Daniel was going down, she flipped on everyone to save herself. Last I heard, she's in witness protection. And Lydia showed up at my office 6 months after everything fell apart. She'd aged a decade, lost weight. Her hands shook as she held her coffee. "I'm sorry," she said. I waited. "I was jealous," she continued. "You were always so hopeful. Even when we were kids, you believed in people. I thought it made you weak. And when Daniel showed interest in me before he met you, I helped him. I told him about your business, your family, everything. I thought if I helped him, he'd choose me. But he chose me. He used both of us," Lydia said. "I was so angry that I helped him destroy you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know. I see who I became. And I'm sorry. Here's the thing about revenge. It doesn't heal you. It just gives you something to focus on besides the pain." I didn't forgive Lydia that day. Maybe I never will. But I didn't destroy her either. "I can't have you in my life," I told her. "But I hope you find a way to live with yourself." She nodded, left. I haven't seen her since. Do you think she should have forgiven Lydia? What would you have done? And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So here I am, 30 years old, billionaire heiress, CEO of multiple companies, living in a penthouse that costs more per month than I used to make in a year. Am I happy? Sometimes. I have purpose now. The shelter has helped 43 women in 6 months. I've started a microfinance program for women entrepreneurs in villages like the one I grew up in. I've used my father's money to do what he would have wanted, build something that lasts. But some nights I still sleep alone in that big penthouse and miss the version of me who believed in love, who thought the best of people, who hadn't learned that trust is a weapon people use against you. Last month I went back to my village, visited my mother's grave, told her everything. "Did I do the right thing?" I asked the headstone. The wind rustled the leaves. No answer. But as I was leaving, I passed my old tailoring shop. New owner now, a young woman, probably 19 or 20, carefully hemming a dress. She looked up as I passed, smiled. For a second, I saw myself. The me who'd existed before Daniel, before betrayal, before I learned that sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones who hurt you most. "Nice work," I told her. Her smile widened. "Thank you. I'm saving up to expand, maybe open a second location someday." "You will," I said. And I believed it. Because here's what I learned. They mocked me for being poor, called me weak, threw me away like garbage. But poverty was never my weakness. It was my training ground. And the girl they underestimated? She's exactly the reason they lost everything. Not because she became ruthless, but because she remembered what it was like to have nothing and used her everything to make sure no one else would feel that way again. My name is Sarah Chen, and this is the story of how I survived the people who tried to bury me. They forgot that when you bury seeds, they grow. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more real stories about resilience, revenge, and redemption. And drop a comment telling me, what would you do with a second chance?